On the night of May the 7th, 2025, during Operation Sindoor, Pakistan made a dramatic claim.
पेलोड उन्होंने रिलीज किया, हमारे उकाब झपटे और आनन फानन 5 जहाज जिनमें 3 राफेल उनको मार गिराया और उनको ऊंधे मुंह वो कश्मीर पर जाकर गिरे.
If true, it would be one of the largest air-to-air combat victories in South Asian history. Pakistan stated their fighters used long-range missiles like the PL-15 to intercept Indian aircraft. At first glance, the story sounds plausible. 7 aircraft destroyed, advanced fighters like the Dassault Rafale supposedly shot down, long-range missiles like the PL-15 intercepting Indian aircraft before they could escape, and layered air defense systems such as the HQ-9 protecting Pakistani airspace. If all of that worked perfectly, then yes, 7 aircraft being shot down might sound possible. But the moment you begin asking 3 simple questions, the story begins to change. Where were the aircraft when the missiles were fired? How long did Pakistan have to react? And most importantly, what does the physics of missile interception actually allow to happen? Because once you start looking at the timeline, distances, and engagement geometry, some of these explanations become very difficult to sustain. So let's test them, one scenario at a time. Scenario 1. The ambush. Pakistan already knew the strike was coming. In this scenario, Pakistani fighters are already flying combat air patrols. Ground radar detects the incoming aircraft early. Air defense systems like the HQ-9 are on alert, and interceptors launch PL-15 missiles before Indian aircraft fire their weapons. But there is a major problem. Reports indicate that Indian standoff weapons successfully struck their targets. Those weapons likely included the Scalp EG cruise missile. And according to multiple accounts, Indian aircraft never crossed into Pakistani airspace. If Pakistani fighters were already waiting in ambush, the interception should have happened before the missiles were launched. Yet the strike still occurred. All 9 terror camps still hit successfully, which creates a contradiction. There were no interceptions of the missiles launched by India unless Pakistan deliberately allowed the missiles through, and that would make no military sense. So the ambush scenario begins to fall apart. So let's test a second possibility. Scenario 2. Pakistan reacted after the strike. The second scenario is much more realistic. Pakistan may not have known about the strike beforehand. Instead, their air defense network reacted after the missiles hit. The sequence would look something like this. First, Indian aircraft launch standoff weapons from Indian airspace. Second, the missiles strike their targets. Third, fighters scramble to intercept the retreating aircraft. Now, the key question becomes time. A typical fighter scramble involves about 8 to 10 minutes to scramble and take off, another 3 to 5 minutes to climb and establish radar contact. That means the total reaction time is roughly 12 minutes to 15 minutes. Now consider the geometry of the situation. When the Indian aircraft fired their weapons, they were already approximately 150 to 170 kilometers away from the nearest Pakistani air bases. And immediately after launch, they turned back toward India. Let's assume a modest escape speed of 200 meters per second. In 12 minutes, those aircraft would travel 144 kilometers. So, by the time Pakistani fighters were in position to launch missiles, the separation between the aircraft could already be roughly 300 kilometers. Now, here comes the weapon of choice, the Chinese PL-15 long-range air-to-air missile. It is estimated to reach speeds of Mach 4 to Mach 5, or about 1,500 meters per second. But this is a tail-chase engagement. The missile is chasing a moving aircraft, which means the relative closing speed becomes about 1,300 meters per second. To close a 300-kilometer gap, the missile would need approximately 231 seconds. That's about 3 minutes and 50 seconds. But during those 4 minutes, the aircraft are still escaping. At 200 meters per second, they travel another 46 kilometers, which means the missile would need to cover roughly 340 to 350 kilometers to reach the target. And that's where the physics starts to matter. Open source estimates suggest the PL-15 rocket motor burns for roughly 1 minute. After that, the missile is coasting on remaining energy, which means it gradually slows down. In a long tail chase scenario, the missile may simply run out of energy before reaching the aircraft. Interestingly, analysts reported that multiple fully intact PL-15 debris were later found on the Indian side of the border. Scenario 3. Now, let's examine the impossible claim itself: 7 aircraft destroyed, including advanced fighters like the Rafale. If that actually happened, we would expect significant evidence. India is one of the most densely populated and digitally connected countries on Earth. Even a single aircraft crash usually produces smartphone videos, photos of debris. 7 crashes would likely create multiple debris fields across hundreds of kilometers. Yet no verified crash evidence appeared, which makes the claim extremely difficult to confirm. So did Pakistan fire missiles? Very likely. Could Indian aircraft have been targeted by PL-15 interceptors? Possibly. But when you combine scramble timelines, aircraft speed, and engagement geometry, something important emerges. The physics of the encounter makes multiple successful interceptions far harder than early battlefield claims suggest. And that brings us back to the original question. If 7 aircraft were really shot down, where is the evidence? Because in modern warfare, with satellites, smartphones, and social media, 7 crash sites are almost impossible to hide. So until that evidence appears, the story remains exactly what many early battlefield claims often are: part combat, part confusion, and part information warfare. Because in war, sometimes the first casualty isn't a plane, it's the truth.